Okay, now for something completely different. So I may have talked about these issues before. I may have hinted to them. I was going to talk about one thing this morning, and then I decided to do something different. If you're uncomfortable with talk about sexuality, you should leave now or grow a spine. Either one. I'm going to talk about sexuality, quite frankly, and I'm going to link it to everything that we've talked about in class. Now, why? Why sex? Why sexuality? Self, conflict, and social relations. Why sexuality? We develop selves through our relationships with others. Well, relationships, sexual relationships, where could there be more closeness and intermingling of people than in sexuality and sexual relationships? So it really is a remarkably pregnant topic that one can speak of with respect to this issue. What's more, it's something that all of us, all of you are grappling with at some form or another. And it's taking place in the context of a cultural moment right now, where questions of the relationship between people in public and in private are very, very salient, especially when it comes to gender issues. What is your obligation, if any, to other people? How is it that we ought to deal with the question of sex and sexual relations between people on college campuses? I suggest to you that this has a great deal to do with self, conflict, and social relations. What type of a self do you want to be? How is it that you are relating to your partners? And what forms of conflict can come up and how do they get resolved? It's virtual microcosm of everything, in a sense, that we can talk about in these classes. And it's very relevant to you. Okay? I want to make a case, for example. We hear a lot about consent. Okay? We hear a lot about the importance of consent, for example, in sexual decision to have sex with somebody. I want to argue that consent is the lowest common denominator. And I don't mean that as a compliment. I mean that consent is actually destroying your relationships. That consent as a concept is actually making your relationships worse and making the sex worse. That's what I want to argue, which may or may not be, I don't know, a controversial concept. In fact, I would suggest it ought not to be a controversial concept at all. And you'll see why I say that and how I'm going to try to link it to class. With me? Okay. So, morality. I can think of at least 3 basic ways to think about the moral life. There's the modern Western way, which talks about rights. There's the more classic way that talks about virtue, and we've talked a lot about that when we talked about Aristotle and others, that the pathway to happiness, the telos of human life, according to Aristotle, is to cultivate virtue or moral goodness. And a third one, which might be called the ethics of care. Okay. I want to talk about how all of these three ways of being in the world, these moral ideas, relate to everything we've been talking about in this class. Self-awareness. What did I say about what it means to be a person? A person is a self-aware, symbol-using animal who capable of intersubjectivity is able to take moral positions in the world. I want to talk about all of that. I'm going to try to bring a lot together today, quite frankly, through the vehicle of understanding sexual relationships. So, how in goodness name are we going to relate this to that to sex and you? All right, let's start with these theories of morality. Okay, so the first theory of morality is the Western idea that everybody has individual rights. Okay, everybody's individual rights. And what is that all about? Here's you, and here's me, and I have my rights, and you have your rights. And what's a right? We have boundaries, if you will. My rights end where your nose begins. There's your nose. Okay, I can do whatever I want as long as it doesn't affect you and your rights. I have my rights, you have your rights. I have my right to privacy, I have my right to speech, I have all types of rights to property, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I can do what I want as long as I don't violate your boundaries. Here's your boundary, here's my boundary. We have the right to pursue our own happiness as long as we're not interfering with somebody else's happiness. That's the doctrine of rights. And within that doctrine, we have all types of ideas that come along with it. Freedom, we are free individuals. We are equal individuals. We have the rights to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. All of these things are important, deeply important. They're the foundation of our society. And with respect to questions of sexual relations, where does this come in? It becomes primary in the way in which we talk about sex these days in our culture. Because what we've got here is we've got a person here with boundaries, a person here with boundaries, and we say, whatever goes on behind closed doors between two consenting adults is okay. The trick here is you've got to get consent. You want to have sex, you have to get consent. This person must freely agree to the sexual act, and this person must freely agree to the sexual act without constraint, without force, etc., etc., etc. Are you clear? Are we clear with this? Now, this maps right on to the rights dialogue, to the concept of rights, because when we have two people who get together, say in business, all right, so I need my fence built, and I go you to you, who is the fence builder, and I say I need a fence built, and you say I'll build your fence, but it's going to cost you this much money, and it will take place on these dates, and here's the circumstances under which I will do it. And I say, okay, let's sign a contract. And then we sign a contract freely. We're engaged in a social contract. I sign the contract, you sign the contract, I agree to the contract, you agree to the contract, we consent. We consent to what we're going to do. We are two free individuals making a choice. We agree not to violate each other's boundaries, and we agree what we're going to do together. You're going to build a fence for me. Got it? Now, do you see how fence building is related to consent? The same idea. I have rights, you have rights. I don't want to bump into you. You don't want to bump into me. You don't want to, we are both free to pursue our happiness, independent of each other's, even independent of each other's boundaries. But as long as we hit those boundaries, that's bad. We have to come up with this contract about what we're going to do together. As long as we consent, we're fine. Same is true of fence building, as is true of sexual relations under the doctrine of consent. Are you with me? Good. Now, if we consent, there should be no problems. If people are engaged in consensual sexual relations, there should be no problems. Except there's all types of problems. It's a lot of problems. Let me back up and come into this with a very different point of view. Okay, I'm going to ask a question. Now, first of all, in the example that I've given so far, we've got two independent people. This person is independent of this person. Each person makes their decisions independent of the other person. Question. When we get into the question of sexuality. Do the best you can. If you can't answer, that's fine. In the domain of fence building, what is my desire? I want a fence. When the domain of fence building, what is the fence builder's desire? The fence builder wants to make money. I want a fence. The fence builder wants to make money. We agree. Are you with me? Question. Let's take that and put it into the realm of a sexual relationship, an erotic relationship. What is sexual desire a desire for? That is my question to you. What is sexual desire a desire for? Anybody want to give an answer? Seems obvious. Would seem obvious. What is sexual desire a desire for? Yes, sir.
Intimacy.
Got one answer here. Intimacy. Firstly, what's intimacy?
I don't know if I have like a concrete answer to that. It's like getting closer to someone.
Getting closer. So getting closer. Can you be intimate in a non-sexual way?
Yeah.
Yes, you could be intimate in a non-sexual way. So is there more to sexual intimacy than every other intimacy, any other form of intimacy? Well done. Good job. Good job. I want to bracket that for a moment. Your answer is too good. Others, what is sexual desire a desire for? What's the first things that come to mind? Yes, sir.
Sex.
Okay. What do you mean? Sexual desire is a desire for sex. Has the word sex, has the word sexual, has the word sex in it. So what is it that we're desiring when we're desiring sex? What is sex and end? What is the end of sex? What is it that we want from it? Okay. So my question to you is, you go to a bar and there's this sexy person over there and you're thinking in your head, hey, procreation. I'm going to do some procreating tonight. Is that what's going on? Certainly procreation has something to do with sex. No question about it. At the species level. What about at the individual level? Yes, ma'am. Satisfaction of what? Satisfaction, keep going.
Orgasm.
Satisfaction slash orgasm slash climax. Yes. Pleasure. Perhaps even sensory pleasure. Okay? Now take a look at those things, those three things that are on the board. Very interesting. Very different. Are they not? Intimacy, procreation, orgasm. Okay, those are not the same thing, although they are certainly tied up with each other. All right. Many of us, our point of entry, pun included, into sexual discussions or sexual thinking, here's the point of entry. Our ordinary thinking, and it makes total sense, is that what sexual desire is a desire for is some sort of sensory pleasure. Some sort of sensory pleasure. Orgasm. The climax. That's what we're looking for. That's what we want. Does that make sense? Good. Now, I don't know if we've talked about it before, but if we have, go ahead. That can't be true. Or that can't just be the only thing that's true. It doesn't make sense. Why? Why can't that be the only thing? Why can't that be all that sexual desire is a sexual desire for?
And we're like animals, like we're like dogs.
That's me. We're like animals and we're like a dog. Keep in mind, this says a person is a symbol using animal, right? So maybe we're like dogs. And what do you know about dogs? Well, you know about dogs that they're not particularly selective in their partners, I would imagine, right? So that the dog's not going there saying, hey, think you're attractive. I don't think yours is attractive, but I'm going to go to the attractive one over here. And there's no frilly lace or anything like that going on. And there's no seduction or what have you's going on here. So you want to say that humans are different than dogs. And that if in fact it were only about climax or the sensory pleasure, we would be much more like animals. Now, some might argue, well, we're animals. We're animals. So, I mean, we're not so different from animals that would make us depart from animals. So, yeah, he's right. Some might say. What would be so what's your point? What's your point? So you don't want to be an animal. You don't want to be an animal. Is there something else, therefore, that people want when they are wanting? What's wrong with the idea that sexual desire is simply a desire for sexual gratification, for sexual satisfaction, for pleasure, for sensory pleasure? Think of what I'm saying, sensory pleasure. What's wrong with that idea? Anybody else? Yes, sir.
It just sounds bad. Sounds like we're using the other person, I guess. Just
Sounds bad. Like we're using the other person. Okay. And to be sure, if the goal of sexual desire is simply for sensory pleasure that the other person gives, to be sure, we are using the other person. You're right. Except under a rights-based way of thinking, what stops you from using the other person? You can do this. It's on the board. What stops you from using the other person? Having consent. I'll be using the other person for my sexual desire if I don't get consent. Solution to the problem, get consent. Done. From a rights-based point of view. You got it? Good, good start. Yes.
Can't you still use someone if there's consent?
Can't you still use someone if there's consent? Yes. To be sure, I'm using the fence guy. I'm just paying him and we're agreed. It's still a using type of a thing. I'm still using the other person. In fact, it may be the case, as I think about it, that becomes a profound question. It may be the case. Yes, in fact, I think it is the case. That under this circumstance, if the only thing between you and me is a contract and consent, if that's all there is, I'm using you, you're using me, and we're simply agreeing to the parameters of each other's use. Got it? Well done. So yes, so consent makes our using acceptable, moral. It's moral to use somebody, but it's not to simply use them. You got to get their consent. Are you with me? Good. Still haven't gotten to the reason why the quest for orgasm cannot be the only quest in sexual desire. Yes. Feeling appreciated for your looks. Okay, hold on to that. I want to return to that very quickly. Love it. I love it. So there's something about you want to be appreciated for your looks. I want to be appreciated for my looks. Okay, so what's that got to do with, how is that inconsistent with the idea? So what you suggested that in sexual desire, there's more than just a desire for the climax. There's a desire to be appreciated in some way, to appreciate and to be appreciated. Is that what you're suggesting? And you're suggesting that it may have something to do with be appreciated or to be appreciated, to appreciate and to be appreciated for one's looks. Any argument that you might want to be appreciated or to appreciate for more than one's looks? Is that possible too? Let's get to it in a few seconds. Great. Now, I'm going to give you the answer. What's wrong with the idea? Not morally wrong, but wrong in a causal way. What is sexual desire for? Orgasm. Cannot be the whole story. Because if it is, you can do that for yourself. Thank you. You don't need another person for that. You don't need another person for that. People can masturbate. And they can get the sensory pleasure of the orgasm probably better than they could with the other person, because the self knows what the self likes. Do you see the problem? Do you see the problem? If you don't see this problem, nothing good can come of what I have to say. This is core. If the goal of sexual desire is simply the sensory pleasure of orgasm, you don't need another person for that. So that can't be what we're looking for simply in sexual desire. Does that make sense? Anybody not get that? Okay. When people masturbate, they don't typically masturbate just for the sensory pleasure. They have someone in mind. Even if it's a fantasy, even if it's somebody who doesn't exist, there's somebody in mind. There's another person involved. Now, what I'm about to say is going to be a little bit complex perhaps, but stay with me. Okay? So therefore, what we desire in sexual desire cannot simply be sensory pleasure. It's got to be something more than that. And it's approaching, I think, what you had suggested. Here we go. What we want in sexual desire, I suggest to you, is not simply satisfaction, but the desire is for another person. And not simply the person's body. A person. I want you to think about that. A person. It's not just the person's body that one wants, because if it was the person's body one wants, then they'd want to have a sex with a dead person, perhaps, or a doll, or a facsimile of a person. Okay? No, there's something much more about it. It's not simply the person's body. It's the person, how can I even say it? It's the animated person. It's the living, embodied, conscious person. It is the living, embodied, conscious, desirous person that we want. So in other words, when we have a sexual desire, it's not simply for the pleasure, it's tied up with the person. You may not get what I'm about to say, but I think it was Sartre who said this. He said, listen to these are the sexiest words I know. These are the sexiest words I know. And please question it. I have no place to write it. He says, in sexual desire, where am I going to write this? In sexual desire, I summon your consciousness to your body so I can possess it there. Those are the sexiest words I know. Let's look at them. Look at those words. See if you can get it. See if you can get it. See if you can get it. I summon your consciousness to your body so I can possess it there. My God, that is an amazing statement. In sexual desire, I summon your consciousness. You are a conscious being. Your consciousness, your awareness of yourself, your awareness of me. I want you to want me. I want you to want me. And I want to want you, but I want you to want me as well. Are you with me? I summon your consciousness, your desiringness to your body so I can possess your consciousness through your body. So if you will, the fondling or the stroking or the orgasm or what have you, the sharing, the intimacy that goes on in a sexual act is part of the process of summoning the person's consciousness. When you are touching another person, you are aware that you are touching another person, and you are aware that the other person is you want the other person to experience that touching, and you want that other person to appreciate that touching, and you want that other person to want to touch you. Are you with me? I want the other person to experience what I'm doing. There is consciousness. I'm summoning your consciousness to your flesh, to your arm, or to whatever part of your body that is being touched, if you will. And now you're aware of my touching of you and your touching of me, because we want to possess the other person as the object of our affection. And we want that other person to want us. Think possess as want. I want your appreciation. I want your desire. I want your love. I want you to see me, appreciate me for my looks and my acts and who I am in that action as expressed in the body. How are we doing? How are we doing? Shake your head yes, shake your heads no. How are we doing? I summon your consciousness to your body so I can possess it there. It's not simply a bodily. It's a conscious thing where I want the other person. I want the other person's consciousness, soul, if you will, through their body, and I want them to want mine. And it is through that process that we get the intimacy that was talked about before. a shared identity, the sharing of identity, not me and you, and we create a contract, but instead it moves from me and you separate from each other to an us and a we, where we are sharing our experiences of each other. How we do it. Now, some of you may object to this term, possess. I summon your consciousness to your body so I can possess it there. In an American sense, in a Western sense, that sounds very controlling. You don't want to possess another person. You don't want to possess another person. To possess another person is to control another person. I say nonsense. I say you do want to possess the other person. Who doesn't want in a sexual relationship to feel special? I'm special to you. That's what it means to say I want to be appreciated for my looks, for example. I want to be special to you. But I can't be special to you if I'm special to everyone. And if I treat everyone as a dog, or that I'm a dog. If every partner, if every person is equally available to me, and I make no discrimination to different people, I'm promiscuous. There's nothing special. But I don't do that. I want to be special. I want you to want me, and only me. I want you to possess me in that sense. And the word gains a lot of power to it. Think about it. Think about it. And think about the following, that in sexual desire, the reason why it's so vulnerable and scary and should be is because of this possession. We want to be wanted, and it is scary if we're not. We can only possess in sexual desire. I can only possess what is freely given to me. I want the other person to freely give it to me so I may possess it. If I try to possess the other without it being freely given to me, the other person wants to give themselves to me, I destroy the other person, I destroy the very thing I want, and I can't have it. It's a remarkable paradox. It's a remarkable paradox. More on that later if you want. Okay, where are we? We started off with the idea of rights. That in a rights-based situation, we have a social contract. We make social contracts to get a fence built. And that what happens in the sexual act is we do the same thing in a doctrine that just says rights. What we say is, I want something, you want something. I want orgasm, you want orgasm. I will treat you as something that can give me what I want. I'll give you what you want. And all therefore we need to do is consent. And it's okay. Everything's fine. That's rights. That's only true if you want to assume that in fact what people want when they want have sexual desire is this orgasm, is this climax, and that's it. And then we can use each other for our purposes. And so I suggest to you that consent at that point, while necessary, while essential, no consent, it becomes rape, and you destroy the other person. You destroy the thing that you want. Consent is necessary. It's basic. But if that's all it is, it's empty. It's empty and dehumanizing, not just to the other person, but to you as well. Sex becomes a contract under consent. May I touch you here? Yes. May I touch you here? Yes. May I touch you here? Yes, no. Consider the absurdity of such a thing. Who the hell does that? And if they do that, what happens to the act? It becomes a series of contracts, and you lose the relating. That's what I mean when I say that the loss that a rights-based conception or a consent-based conception, if that's all it is, destroys the process of relating to the other person as a sexual being, and quite frankly, relating to the other person more generally. Are you with me? Any questions so far? Any questions so far? Ask it anytime, please. So I suggest to you, that is not enough. That is not enough in the sexual arena, and that is not enough in the interpersonal arena, more generally, beyond sex. That is not enough for you to define who you are. That is not enough for you to define who you are as a person, as a self-conscious, symbol-using animal capable of intersubjectivity and relating to other people, and therefore able to adopt a moral stance in relation to the world. There's your personhood. If we're just self-contained beings that have a right to pursue our own pleasure, that is not a human being at all. You become closer to an animal, and you develop an empty, meaningless, purposeless life. Go have sex, you might say. Go have promiscuous, wanton sex. You say, hey, that's going to be great. And it might be for 7 minutes, 7 weeks, whatever the 7 is. Go back to Aristotle. You pursue pleasure for itself, power for itself, status for itself, all of these things, all of those things, you will not be satisfied because they are fleeting and defined by somebody else. The only and the main thing that is ever going to bring happiness is the pursuit of that which is good, and you got to figure out that which is good. And in the sexual act, that which is good is not simply the orgasm. Got it? There's more to it. Because we want more in that situation, even though we may not know it, which therefore raises the question of these two moral frameworks as moral frameworks to guide your lives. And again, I'm using sex here as a point of entry into this discussion, but I'm not really talking about sex. I'm talking about your relations to the world and your relations to yourself in general. Is self-interest, fun, pleasure enough? For me, the answer is absolutely no. For Aristotle, the answer is absolutely no. No, instead, we need more than that. We need virtue and we need care. We need virtue, which says, virtue, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be? What kind of moral person? Virtue is moral goodness. What type of moral person? What type of, whenever we ask the question, who do I want to be? We're asking a question about morality, about virtue, about goodness. What is it good to be? Who is it good to be? That's the question that is asked when you ask about virtue. Care. When I act out of care, I act out of concern and value for the other person. To act out of care is to act out of concern for the well-being of the other, or whatever it is that you care about. If you care about a beautiful vase, listen to some of my words. If you care about a beautiful vase, you don't want anything bad to happen to it. Not because you have a contract with the vase. The vase to be broken. You want it to be protected. You want it to be to continue to exist. And what's more, because you love it so much, because it is so beautiful, you want to possess it. You want it to be mine. Here's my vase. Don't touch this is my vase. I love this vase. I identify with this vase. This is my vase. Okay, when you have a coffee cup that you love, it's your coffee cup. For some reason, you love something about this coffee cup, perhaps the insignia on it, perhaps Perhaps its shape, perhaps where you got it has some nostalgic value. Perhaps it's thin and the warmth comes through it. Perhaps it's in an interesting shape that you love. And then you identify with that coffee cup, and I can only have that coffee cup. And you want to maintain that coffee cup and take care of it and possess it. You care about the coffee cup. In the sexual act, it is not enough, I suggest to you, to simply proceed as if you have your rights, I have my rights, and then we consent. No, we also need this. What type of a person do I want to be in relation to you? What type of person do I want you to want? What type of a person would make me attractive in your eyes? And not just attractive as a body, as a person, as a good person. You need that, and you need care. What happens if I act out of care rather than merely through self-interest? Think of the absurdity of this, that the sexual act, if it is defined only in terms of a consent, we are making a contract, and it is devoid of virtue, who I want to be, and devoid of care. I must treat you as someone who is an end unto yourself. I value you not for what you can do for me, not simply for what you can do for me, but for who you are. That's what you were talking about. That's what you were talking about. In the sexual act, as in life, I suggest to you, to act toward the other simply with respect to self-interest and exchange is empty and does not bring about fulfilling, purpose-driven life. But to act toward the other with care, compassion, and a desire to care for and be concerned with the well-being of the other, this is what brings about the virtue that Aristotle and others suggest is necessary to cultivate the self to bring about human happiness. So, I suggest in college situations and in any situation, our concern with consent as the primary moral feature of sex dehumanizes sex, takes the intimacy out of it, thank you for that word, takes the core of it out of it, makes it even less sexy. It destroys it if that's all there is. And therefore, what we ought to be doing, instead of pretending that we're not in a college situation or in our society, is we should say that consent is necessary, but nowhere near sufficient. It sets the bar way too low. It sets the bar way too low. Sexual activity is too sacred, it's too wonderful to reduce to a commodity. And it takes time to nurture that and to nurture who I am to the other and to the other in order to reach a truly fulfilling way of being with other people. Questions so far? I need some questions. Cannot be inert about this. What do you think of what I'm saying? Don't be shy. Imagine you're talking about this not in a classroom, but with your buddies. You couldn't shut you up. You'll be okay. You won't die. Thoughts? Yes, sir.
Honestly, just after hearing all that, I never necessarily. Just how it is, like in today's day and age, like you don't look at it as deep as this, and I think that you like to say, like, I don't know if culture has something to do with it, but it might. I think that it's kind of been like, as time's gone on, the act itself has been like misconstrued because me personally, this is the first time I've ever seen like it broken down in front of me, seen all the what actually goes into it.
The complexity of it.
Yeah.
that we tend to think of sex and human relations, but sex is a simple thing. Simple. Well, the mechanics are simple enough. And then we reduce it down to the mechanics. Does culture have something to do with it? Absolutely. Our culture is organized primarily around rights. You know, it wasn't always that way. We used to have rights. Prior to a certain period of time, we used to have a much deeper concern about virtue. And I don't mean chaste virtues or being good boys and good girls. We had some notion of what moral goodness was. I don't necessarily mean the old traditional roles, although that's what I'm pointing to here, is that existed in history. And a concern for other people. Not everybody, but that was in even our culture before the Cultural Revolution, not the cultural, the sexual revolution of the 60s, which dismantled virtue and care as proper aspects of what it means to be a person. And then this is what is left over, rights. So does culture have something to do with it? Yeah, go to other cultures. That's why you got to go to other cultures, see what a peculiar culture we live in. And we live in a very peculiar culture. And I don't say this as a prude or as someone who wants to return to some traditional morality or something like that. I say that you talk about culture, we don't talk about virtue and care very much. We need to, not to go backwards to an old conception of virtue and care, but to create a new conception of virtue and care and relating to other people. And that's what will transform who we are as people and as a culture as well. Great comment, great question. Others, please. Others, please. Yes, sir. Nice and loud.
Are there like cases in marriages where people just get like tired of the?
Are there cases in marriage where people just get tired of each other's in a sexual way? There's a word for that. It's called marriage. Great question. Why do people have affairs? People have affairs primarily for excitement. They could love their partner. They could even have good sex with their partner, whatever good sex means, and I can talk about that in a few seconds. And then have an affair. Why? Because if you're in a marriage over and over for 10, 20, 30 years, you become predictable to each other. The novelty isn't there, okay? I can't make you feel as special. I can't make you feel as special as you felt when we first met, because you didn't know me and I didn't know you. We were novel to each other. You got that? And so to have an affair is to go through and have that entire experience of novelty, of newness. See what I'm saying? And so it is very easy and very typical, in fact, in marriages for people to become bored with each other and to become bored with each other sexually. You raise a very important question. You raise a very important question, which calls for the need for us to rethink what it means to be married. Because if you think that you're going to get married to Prince Charming or Princess Charming and then become happily ever after now because you're married, here we are, we're married, we have our married relationship, you're dead. Because a marriage relationship, like any other relationship, must be constantly reconstituted. In you, there is an infinity. In me, there is an infinity. And if you're in a relationship, you've got to find the infinity of the other. And you have to keep reinventing that. And that takes energy and effort, and it's hard. And you've heard those cliches that a relationship is hard. What were you going to say?
I can't remember.
I shouldn't have stopped you. When you remember it, please. Good, great question. Good sex. We are obsessed with good sex. How do you have good sex? How do you have good sex? I'm going to tell you how to have good sex. Anybody know what it is? Yeah, go ahead. I'm afraid to ask. Go ahead.
Variety of positions.
Metaphorically, maybe. I'll hold on to that. What do you got here? What type of needs? Okay, both people's sexual needs are met. All right, go ahead. What do you got?
Orgasm.
Both people orgasm together. What do you got?
The same as having a good day, you need to try something new.
Try something new in bed. What do you got?
Like after it, you feel like fulfilled and satisfied.
Well, what would make you feel so fulfilled and satisfied?
It's really dependent on the person.
Well, give me some ideas here. Give me some ideas. Let's try it the other way around. What would not make you feel fulfilled and satisfied?
If I had sex and right after got up and she really just walked away.
Excellent. Did you hear what he just said? Did you hear what he just said? Now, there's the clue to good sex right there. He just gave it to you. Not what anybody else said. Because good sex has nothing to do with technique. Got nothing to do with technique. Technique will come, pun intended. All right? Actually, it wasn't intended, but afterwards it became. Multiple positions. Only if the positions, only if the positions are more profound, and I'm not talking about physical positions. I'm talking about you have sex and she leaves. Note she left after the sex, and that destroyed it. It made it unfulfilling. That doesn't make any sense. If good sex is about good positions and having multiple techniques and ceilings and chandeliers and all the rest of it, if that's what good sex is, it shouldn't matter that she left. But she left, which means you're looking for something more than a chandelier. You're looking for, what is that more thing? So what's good sex? And it's what you, it's what you said, except you, in my opinion, your bar was too low. You said to fulfill each other's sexual needs. I'm suggesting to you that a sexual need is to summon your consciousness to your flesh. Actually, it's flesh, not body, so that I can possess it there. What needs have to be, what needs are you trying to solve? What needs are you upset about when she leaves?
I just want to be honest, like care about, like
You want to be cared about. You want to feel cared about. You want to feel appreciated. You want to feel some degree of intimacy that goes beyond the physical. Okay? You want to feel some sense of connection. You want to feel some sense of sharedness, of not simply me and you, but usness. And if that usness isn't there, so therefore, if you will, good sex is about usness. It's about we-ness, which rhymes with P-ness. So you can remember that. Okay? It's about we-ness. All right? And that's not about technique. That's much more profound than technique. So you got to get out of this level, I suggest to you, about thinking of it in terms of technique and mechanics, because that is dehumanizing. And whether you believe me or not, you will at some point, but whether you believe me or not, the mechanics don't make it so. Somebody had a hand up. Yes.
Oh, you know how you said what Dana was saying, like if the person is right after, like that's not good. But like, what if it's like just two people like cooking up no feelings?
Great. That's exactly what I'm arguing against. That's exactly what I'm arguing against. Hooking up with no feelings. Because hooking up with no feelings, I suggest to you, is either a lie or it is empty. It is either a lie or it is empty. And it certainly is exploitive. Maybe. It's either a lie or it's empty. Let's start with the emptiness. You hook up with no feelings. Well, what does that mean? You're only looking for the orgasm or whatever it is. Again, you could have done that yourself. Okay. Oh, no, I needed that other person to do that. What did you need the other person to do? Well, what was it specifically? Well, if you began to describe that, I'll bet you anything that without very much time, you would begin to get into a psychological, social component to it. It would not simply be the presence or absence of a lubricant, okay? Instead, it would be, is this person liking what I'm doing? Am I adequate? Am I being seen as good in bed? All right. Do I want this person to like the way I look? Okay. The second that gets in there, it stops being hooking up without feelings, because those are feelings. Take away those feelings. Those are the initial feelings. You take away those feelings, they're not there. And if it really is hooking up for this mechanics, what have you added? Nothing, I would argue. And if you could figure out what's added, this person touches you in this particular way. If you found a mechanical device that would do that, you should be okay and you wouldn't need the person. If you're being honest and saying hooking up without feelings is what we're doing. I suggest to you that hooking up without feelings is not. There's always something there, which is why people often feel shamed and dirty. That's why we have the very concept of the walk of shame. Okay, you walk for the shame back to, oh, I see what that person did. All right, not wasn't pointing to anybody. Well, maybe him, but that's where you got me. Good. This side of the board. Personhood. Why am I talking about this? I'm not just talking about it because of sex. I'm talking about it because sexual intercourse, sexual relations is the arguably properly understood, in my opinion, is the closest, most profound, could be the most and spiritual form of connecting. It should be. It is not, because of what we've lost in culture, I suggested, and as the other gentleman suggested as well. So almost anything you could say about sexual relations, you could talk about our relations to other people and our relations to ourselves, and what does it mean to be a self? So take a look. A person, self-conscious, symbol-using animal, capable of shared experience with others. That's what intersubjectivity means. And as a result of that, able to take a moral position. Think of everything we just talked about. Start anywhere. Start with animal. Okay, animals have sex, and they're not particularly concerned about what's in the mind and the experience of the other animal. They don't care about that. But we are symbol using animals. We are transformed by our capacity to symbolize. We are transformed by our capacity of imagination. We are transformed by our capacity to not only imagine, but the second we have symbols and imagination, morality comes into it. Standards of goodness. Now, not anybody will do. Now I begin to make differentiations, good, bad, higher or lower. This is better, that is better. That person is better, that person is not as good. Now, the sexual act, the act of being human, is thoroughly saturated with images of goodness, beauty. You got that? So it's no longer animalistic. It's no longer simply animalistic. There's an animalistic element there. Absolutely. That gets transformed. It never goes away through the symbol using animals. Then I perform those, as I'm doing these, I'm creating symbols which have a moral content. I got to apply them to myself, my self-awareness, my self-awareness. Who am I? What type of person should I be? Virtue. What type of person? Am I an exploiter? Do I not care about the other person? Should I be in years gone by, we would speak of being a lady or a gentleman. Those ideas have gone away. We haven't replaced them with anything. But who am I as a partner, as a sexual being? What type of a person am I? And that enters into those images of those moral image of who I should be, guide our actions. And if those moral images of who I should be include, I should be someone who cares for others, intersubjectivity, shared experience. What could be an example of a greater potential for the sharing of experience in the sexual act? Appropriately done. A sexual act in which one person is concerned about the experience of the other person and the other person's experiencing of me. The second you are involved with another person, it becomes oral and conjures up all types of issues and images of what is good. What does it mean to be a good person? What does it mean to relate to others in a good way, etc., and cannot be otherwise. And it is true of hooking up as it is for anything else. The only difference is that hooking up based on consent, hooking up is consent to its lowest possible way. See that? That's what I say. And I'm suggesting to you that even in hooking up, there are images of the good, images of goodness, of who you are and what we should be in relation to each other. So, sex is not morally neutral. You're robbing yourself if you don't consider this question of virtue and care in addition to consent, where consent is dehumanizing in and of itself, I suggest. Time's up. So what do we got? I need one. No. I need one profound comment or question. One profound comment or question before we leave. One profound comment or question before we leave. Precious, no pressure. You can do it. Whatever you're thinking. All of you are having thoughts, whatever's in there, whatever, all of you are having thoughts and feelings. Just make contact with them, and whatever comes up, express it. Doesn't matter what it is. Yes, sir.
I think if we return back to like what it was like back in the day
Mhm.
to have sex, like
Mhm.
now,
Mhm.
it'd be a lot more natural and things would work better, I guess.
Things would work better.
We'd be better off.
What could be more natural? Said if things were returned back to the day, whatever that day was, or whatever that place was, things would be more natural and work better. Question though, what could be more natural than animals? That's the quintessential natural. Okay, which suggests maybe not natural that you're looking for, a certain way of cultural that you're looking for. Okay, which raises the question: there's all types of cultures and all types of cultural ways of being. What one you're looking for? That sexuality is not simply a natural thing, except if you're an animal. To be a human and engage in sexual activity or any other activity requires culture, requires the imagination that is mediated through culture and language, as we've talked. Yes. Never let you raise your hands without calling on you immediately, because they forget that stuff. I did nothing wrong with you. That's what happens.